Hello and welcome to our review on operations and factoring. So the first part of today's video is going to be review of just operations with fractions. It's going to go with our Unit 9. And then we're going to review factoring because everything goes together in Unit 9. So the first thing, to add and subtract fractions. So I'm going to do, these are kind of like notes and review. So add and subtract need like denominators. And so here, 7 and 5 are not the same. So what we have to do is we have to find a least common denominator, also known as the least common multiple of 7 and 5. Now what you can do is you can list out your multiples of 7, list out your multiples of 5, or you can just, if you don't want to spend that time, you can just multiply them together. So 7 times 5 is 35. And so our common denominator, at least common denominator, is 35. So that's going to become our new denominator. Well, what we have to ask ourselves is 7 times what equals 35? 5. Now, I'm going to multiply it to the top and to the bottom because it will keep my fraction, what's it called? Balanced. So we would get 65 over 35. And then 5 times 7 is 35. And so we're going to multiply it to the top and to the bottom. And so so now that we have the same denominators, we're going to add the numerators together, but keep the denominator. And so we get 72 over 35. And I think that is your final answer, I'm pretty sure, because you cannot simplify that fraction anymore. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing. We're just now going to subtract. And so 8 and 2, our least common multiple of 8 and 2. You might know what it is. You could write 16, but 2, 4, 6, 8. So they both have 8 in common. So our common denominator that we're going to have is 8. Well, we're lucky because that first one already has a denominator. So if you want to think about it, we're multiplying it by 1. My next one, 2 times 4 is 8. So I'm going to multiply 4 to the top and to the bottom. And so from here, it's just like we did with adding, except now we're subtracting. And so 61 minus 12 is 49 over 8. And that can't be simplified. And so there is our answer. Okay, multiplying. So to multiply, I'm doing a lot of things right now. There we go. You want to see if you can cross cancel. Okay, so you can cross cancel vertically and diagonally. So like 2 and 6, they both have 2 in common. So 2 divided by 2 is 1. 6 divided by 2 is 3. And then we multiply across. So 1 times 7, 3 times 3, we get 7/9. So that's multiplying fractions. Dividing fractions. So to divide fractions, I always like to, even as a teacher, I still say keep, change, flip. So before you cancel anything out, you first want to do keep the first fraction, change the operation, flip the second fraction, then cancel. And so you can cancel horizontally. So like 6 and 8 both have 2 in common. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 8 divided by 2 is 4. And then from here, we look to see if we can cross cancel on the diagonals. We can't, so we're going to multiply across. So we are left with 3 times 3 over 4 times 4. You can kind of skip this step because you should be able to do this in your head. And so we get 9/16. And so that is your operations with your fractions. You're going to do a little bit of practice on the next page on your own. Our next 4 problems we're going to do together are just review on factoring. So the first thing you should always do in factoring, ask yourself, is there a GCF? GCF. And so you can put them in a box. This is how I do it. If your first term is negative, we want to factor out that negative. And then 12 and 8 both have 4 in common. So negative 12 divided by negative 4 is 3. And 8 divided by negative 4 is negative 2. That V only shows up in that first box, so it's not common. And so our final answer is negative 4, parenthesis 3V minus 2. And so there is your GCF. The next 3 are just normal factoring. And so this is going to be your big X method because it is 3 terms. Remember, 3 terms. And so we're looking for A times C on the top, B on the bottom, and we're looking for our 2 numbers. And so A times C, which is 1. So 90 and negative 19, our 2 numbers are negative 10 and negative 9. And so we get to do that shortcut where we get X minus 10, X minus 9 as our factors. We're not solving because there's no equal sign. I'm actually going to do number 8 real quick because it goes in. This is also the big X method, but it's going to be, since A is not 1, your bottoms up method. So we're still going to do that big X. Before that though, did the most bad thing to do. Ask myself, is there a GCF? GCF, there is, because they all are 5 in common. So when I factor that out, I'm left with 3p squared minus 13p plus 10. Now I'm going to work with that inside piece. What 2 numbers multiply to get 30 and add to get negative 13, negative 3, and negative 10. So my factors then are p minus 3, p minus 10. However, because our A value is not 1, we're going to have to do that bottoms up. And so if we can simplify, we simplify. So for this problem, we are left with p minus 1. The other one, it can't simplify, so we get 3p minus 10. We just can't forget to bring down that GCF to get our final factored answer. And our last one we're going to do, number 7, this is dots, because it's 2 terms, all perfect squares, and it's subtraction. All of those have to be happening. And so, if you still don't get it, we're going to review it real quick. N squared, we're left with n. The square root of 1 is 1. And so our factor is n plus 1, n minus 1. Okay, so that is review of factoring. I want you to finish the rest of the pages in this packet.